So I learned something today that I thought I'd share. This morning I was biking for 45 minutes outside, and this is new. I'm like integrating this into my schedule. It's kind of like earlier when I was saying a couple of days ago I want to do more Zone 2, and I started doing biking when I got back from vacation. But it's a broader life lesson that while I'm biking, there's more than one times. Say you set a timer for an hour, and you're like 30 minutes in, and you want to check your phone and see how much time is left. Every time you check your phone, it seems like less time has passed. You probably know that feeling. So if you say set a 10-minute timer and you check it, 8 minutes left, you check it, it's like 7:30. Like the time passes so much slower when you're thinking about the time that's passing. Or in high school or middle school when you're like, the class is going on and you're just looking at the clock waiting. It seems like time passes slower. And that's because it kind of does, like, relatively. And this goes back to the whole thing of life of focusing on the present moment or the process. The journey, enjoy the journey, not the destination. And if you learn to enjoy the journey, the destination will just be there. It will exist. You won't have to. And that's kind of the whole thing. If you focus on the end result and the dream all the time, but you're miserable in the actions and you don't actually enjoy the journey, you probably aren't going to stick to it for long enough to get it all done. And that's why people say enjoy the journey, because if you enjoy the journey, you stop counting the time until you hit your goal, and you just enjoy living it. And then before you know it, you've hit your goal when you don't even expect it. It's a pleasant surprise. So in the same way that if you go to do cardio, that's the example that we're going to stick with, and I set a timer for an hour, and I continue, like, I check the timer once in a while, you'll notice I check the time more frequently the closer I get to the goal. And the more I check the time, the less I want to be biking, the more I want to quit. It applies to a broader scale. So say your goal is this year to lose a certain amount of weight. If you know what you need to work out X amount a day or go to the gym, and you start doing that, and then you're tracking your progress, which is okay, but then you're like, okay, I'm like 30% of the way done. And then you track that, and then you're like, okay, I'm like 42% of the way done. Okay, I'm like 48% of the way done. You're gonna get to like 60%, and you're gonna be checking like constantly, right? You're gonna be checking up on this goal, and you're gonna become so fixated on the goal, then you're gonna forget about the whole process, and you're not gonna be enjoying the process because you're like, oh my God, I still have 40% left, because you're focused on what you have left. You're focused on the time gap between you and your goal, but you're not focused on the input. And so when you focus on that time gap, you lose focus on what you're actually doing day to day. But if you optimize what you're doing day to day, naturally the goal will come of itself. If you know that you have to work out for an hour a day for the whole year, and you will definitely lose the weight, then don't track it. If you know for a fact, don't track it. Don't focus on how much longer is left. Just focus on enjoying your workout today and doing it every day. All you have to do is focus on the consistency in the workout. And if you do it every single day, the goal will achieve itself. But everybody seems to want to focus on how much they have left. They're counting down, and it just doesn't work. Not for me, at least, because it works the same way as counting down time. When you're waiting for time to pass, it passes slower. And when it passes slower and you have a goal in mind, you're more likely to give up on that goal because it seems so much longer and more untouchable than it actually is. So in one world, your goal is to lose 10 pounds this year. In your other world, your goal is to lose 10 pounds this year. Same goal. But in this world over here, you're tracking your weight and you're counting down how many pounds left you have to lose before the goal. And the less pounds you have, the less you're going to try. So if you get down to, oh my gosh, I only have 3 pounds left, you're going to be like, oh, that's easy. And you're going to slack off a little bit. And then you'll slack off and you'll gain back a little bit of weight, actually. And then you have to work a little bit harder. And then you're doing this whole thing because you're counting down to a goal. Versus in this other world, you simply know, okay, if I do X amount of work, I'll burn X amount of calories, I'll lose this amount of weight. So you try it. And say you have to work out on average 30 minutes, 7 days a week, or an hour, 4 days a week. Then you choose the hour, 4 days a week, right? And you're working out this hour, 4 days a week. And you're not focused on how much weight you have lost. You're focused specifically on the action of the goal. And it turns out by the end of the year, you've lost the weight, you've actually lost a little bit more weight than you were anticipating, and you actually enjoy the gym. And you almost completely forgot about the goal because you're enjoying going to the gym so much that the goal went and achieved itself and went farther because you weren't focused on the end result counting down, you were focused on the input to the process. Because the outputs are maximized if the inputs are maximized. And this is kind of a rule that I have for myself of, if your goal is this thing, then why track the outcome if your inputs are maximized? Another way to put this is, if your goal is to get perfect sleep, you can have a sleep tracker. You can buy an Apple Watch and you can track your sleep. That's really cool. But if you know for a fact that in order to get good sleep, you go to bed on time, turn off electronics early, go to bed at the same time every day, do some sort of physical activity or exercise to tire you out through the day, and you know that that will get you the best sleep that you can possibly get, then why track the sleep? What is the point? If you know that you've done everything you possibly can to make your sleep as good as it can be, there's no purpose to tracking the outcome. Because if the outcome or the inputs are perfect, the outcome will be as good as it possibly can be. And so if you focus all of your efforts on the outcome, you're not going to be focusing your efforts on the input. And the input is what creates the output. It's kind of an abstract idea to try and explain, but like, I don't track my sleep. I don't track anything because I know if I just focus specifically on going to bed at the same time, which I'm terrible at, by the way, and doing all these things, that I know that the outcome will be as best as it can be. And so I don't need to worry about tracking it because I know that I've maximized it. So it doesn't matter what it is. It could be a 70% sleep score or whatever. But if I did everything I could, it couldn't have been better than 75%. So there's no point in tracking the outcome. It's all on the inputs, but everybody's focused on the outputs. And so it's kind of the same thing of, if you have a goal that you want to accomplish in a year and you're so focused on how much longer you have to the goal, or you're so focused on the goal itself that you lose track of what you're actually inputting into the goal. The daily exercise, going to the gym, that's what actually achieves the goal. And so if you know you have to do X amount of exercise, just focus on doing the exercise. Don't even worry about the goal. If you know for a fact, and if you maximize the exercise, the goal will be accomplished. The goal comes as a means. And so really, punchline is, focus on the inputs, not the outputs. If you have a goal, focus on the process of achieving the goal and learn to enjoy it. Don't count down how much longer you have until you achieve it, because then it will be all about the goal and not about the process. But it is all about the process. So focus on that. If you maximize your output or your outputs will be as max as they can possibly be. So don't worry about it. That's it. Hopefully it makes sense, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.